Hey, how you doing? My name is Patrick Long. I'm a ex-Porsche factory driver, two-time winner in the GT class at the 24 Hour of Le Mans. I'm here to walk you through a little bit of simulator training in the 992 GT3 Cup car from Porsche. Most of today will apply to any type of simulator, something state-of-the-art like this CXC rig here, which is full motion, completely cockpit adjustable, or a basic off-the-shelf simulator. The most important thing is that you have a high-quality set of hardware, your steering wheel, your pedals, and your chassis that are all synced up. They're rigid. They allow you to completely immerse yourself in the hardware so that then you can focus on your job on screen. Just like a race car, it is so important where your body starts. When you get into your sim, first thing you want to think about is that distance. How close is the steering wheel? How close is the pedals? You'll see with the CXC Motion 2 that everything pedal and steering related moves in one. Today we're running the Formula steering wheel from CXC. Great quick release hub, again, all authentic racing hardware. I like to have about a wristwatch length between the top spoke of the steering wheel and your wrist. You have a slight bend in your knee even when you're at full throttle. No straight legs, but also not crouched up where you're gonna have your knee getting in between your steering. As you can see, the CXC sim has a nice rock back, which is very realistic for the GT3 Cup car and a lot of different race cars that I've driven. This rig has a tensioner setup on the seatbelt, so the way I'm gonna set up today is just like in a real race car. I'm first gonna get my lap belt set tight. You wanna be really rigid, pulled right back against the back of the seat. Get your hips tight, keep that center lap belt low, and then plug in your shoulder belts, sort of setting them up to come vertically straight down your body. In this rig, I'm probably 75% of what I would have in a race car. Just enough that there's not really any excess slack. Everything is very much set up for a driver by drivers. That authenticity not only gives you a full immersion, but it's also just a really nice piece of hardware. The great thing about the Motion 2 is they give you these auxiliary buttons and you can customize them yourself. With the CXC rig, they already have a lot of these knobs and steering wheel buttons pre-programmed in. Steering, resistance, amount of lock is super important. Braking force adjustment. The great thing here is we're running a full hydraulic real bottom feed pedal setup. I'm gonna run a decently hard brake pressure setting in this design with the 992 GT3 Cup. It's a non-ABS setting in the game. And with that, you wanna have a lot of feel and a modulation ability because of course, if the front wheel is locked, you wanna be able to trail out of that brake. But of course, if you're in a big aero section and you want to add a lot of braking force, you'll be able to do that. Another in-cockpit adjustability is vibration. Basically, curbs, dropping wheels, making contact with another car. You want a little bit of force. There's a kicker in the back of the seat, and I can adjust that here in cockpit. Race cars have stiff springs, stiff dampers. There's not a lot of travel. Personally, I like to run less travel with a little bit faster, higher frequency setting. And the great thing is, depending on the track, depending on the driver, that is all available to you right here in cockpit. A great advancement in sim racing is a second tier V-Box, where you can actually record your sim racing and then send it out to a coach, compare notes with another driver, recording your in-driving video as well as telemetry. A really key setting in-game for iRacing are track conditions and weather. Once you go into the menu, there's a lot of different variables here, and it makes a huge difference not only in how the car reacts to tire wear, how it handles, but also the lap time that you're going to produce. First of all, in setting weather, you've got 3 different options of your overall condition. Then you move down through temperature, humidity, wind speed, initial weather variation, ongoing weather variation. So it gets very specific. Looking at the different setups in game. First thing we'll talk about is force feedback. We have 2 key settings that I like to focus on. First of all, the strength, the amount of force feedback that's actually being produced and given to the driver. And then the second setting being wheel force. We have 16 Newton meters of max wheel force. So we set those 2 parameters, bookending what you want to use and how much your hardware can give you. So as I mentioned, 2023, the 992 version, the latest iteration of the GT3 Cup car from Porsche. If you go into your chassis setup and really how you can engineer the car, starting at tires and aero, each of your individual contact patches or tires, you have a starting pressure, your last hot pressure from the previous session, your temperatures across the spread of inner shoulder, middle of the tire, and outer, and then how much tread was remaining in that session based on how long you ran and how much wear you were producing with your tire. This is a great place to really look at how the tires are reacting and behaving from the previous session. And then, of course, the one thing that you can adjust is your starting pressures based on the feedback and the learnings and understandings that you had from your previous session. On the chassis page, quite a few different settings here. Some are limited based on the car that you have in iRacing. Some things are locked by spec because that's actually how it is in real life. For instance, in the Cup cars, you can't change the spring. Here we start in the front with your anti-roll bar settings, how stiff you want your anti-roll bar, really that relationship of lateral anti-roll and how the relationship of one tire to the other behaves. If you think about anti-roll, traction, turn-in, mechanical grip at a kind of fine-tuning aspect versus bigger wholesale changes such as spring rates, ride heights, aero, etc. Your toe, fuel level, how much fuel you're running in the car, that might be a strategy thing based on how long the race is, or if you're taking fuel out of the car to run lighter for qualifying. Cross weight is really just a reading based on some of the other calibrations or settings that you're running with your suspension. Corner weights, ride heights, spring perch offset, camber. These are all things that I've set up and fine-tuned, not so much for a track specific or optimum lap time, but something that you can use for training from track to track to track. One thing I find in iRacing is there's so much time investment in really tuning a car for ultimate pace or race pace and making your tires last. Find something that works for you. This setup will be in the comments below and you can utilize that, and maybe you'll love it, maybe you won't. But basically what I've done is set up a car that's reactive enough to braking and trail braking. There's still a little more understeer from mid-quarter to exit, especially on throttle, than I would prefer or would say is ultimately how one of these cars handles, but it does the trick for training. So now sitting in pit lane in the car, one thing that I like to fine tune to different cars with inside of iRacing or other softwares is the view, the depth, how far back you're sitting from the steering wheel, how high the driver is in relationship to steering and dash, and how zoomed in or out you are. On this sim, again, it's great to have cockpit adjustability because I can make these on the fly or quickly without leaving the game and going back into the garage. So pushing the view button, and then first thing I'm going to look at is field of view, both backing up, which is the plus button of the FOV button, and then the actual tilt of the driver. And then the last one is the height of the driver in relationship head to dash. So welcome to Weather Tech Raceway, or as I call it, Laguna Seca. Old school Northern California track, not far from the beach. I've been coming here since the early 90s. I love all of the cambers, all of the inclines, drop-offs. There's a little bit of everything here. One of the things you'll hear me talk about in this track walk is being online. It's so key here because there's a lot of sand around and it blows across the racetrack. So the racing line is kept clean by cars on track, but if you get one tire width offline, you're gonna either see a lot of lap time loss, or you're even going to drop wheels or worse. So be really crisp with your lines, really purposeful with your car placement, and remember your visuals. You're going to look where you want to go. You're going to go where you're looking. So let's roll out here onto pit lane. Pit lane is separated from the racetrack by these orange cones, driver's right, and as you run down this concrete wall on the left, you'll follow the white line down the hill. Please remember it's low grip here on this apron as we run the extended pit lane inside of the Andretti hairpin turn 2 to my right. Building speed as we come out of pit lane, stay driver's left, merging. We're already into turn 3 here. Turn 3 is pretty flat. It has a couple different angles in it. You'll see some of the sand driver's left there, but my positioning here is to actually apex a little bit earlier than normal in some of the other videos at other racetracks. The key ingredient here is right front tire onto the blue and white curb. Don't want to hit the red curb, the extended amount of curb, but if we look at this a little bit closer, my driver's right tire is right here before the approach to the red turtle, which is just inside of the curb. And then you see my line. My exit point is probably in line with that mini pagoda timing and scoring tower that you see just to the right of my windshield wiper. Bleeding on the speed early, knowing that the grip here is relatively low, although they've recently repaved this track, and we don't yet know what that's going to hold for grip or lap time. I'm going to assume it's going to be easier on tires, quicker lap times, and less bumpy. Turn 4, I do a light early speed adjustment. In some cars, it's no brake and just a lift. In other cars, it's a light brush of the brake and then an early commitment to some throttle to lock that rear differential, help point the car, and keep the rolling speed up. This is a 4th gear corner. When we get back up into some speed runs later on in this video, you'll see that it's, again, a little bit of an earlier apex, early throttle commitment, and then running it right out to the exit road. You'll see a lot of flat curbs that are usable. We're avoiding the red turtles inside of the curbs, but even on the exit curb, you can use quite a bit of it. It's decently wide. The run down to turn 5 is about getting the car set up driver's right. Your brake board number 1 is a 4 here. I would say that's a comfortable place to start. It's again a big throttle and a big brake into turn 5. Apply brake pressure here with a big spike of maybe a 4.5 out of 5 pedal, and then you're bleeding that brake off, because as you can already see as it bends around, it's an uphill camber increasing corner. So bleeding the speed off down to turn in. I again am in pretty early, trying to pick up the apex curb, pick my eyes up and look around the corner to the top of the hill. Early throttle because you're picking up camber. This is a 3rd gear corner, most cars that I drive here. We're gonna grab 4th gear. The road there is available, but it crowns a little bit to the exit curb. So don't get in the sort of comfort space of using tons of apex and exit curb at turn 5, especially the exit curb at turn 5 can catch you off guard. One of the most difficult corners at Laguna Seca is turn 6. You can't see the apex by the time you're committed. So this is about track knowledge. This is about disciplined setup into the corner. If you need to brake, it's a light brake. It's quicker than you think, but the main key ingredient here is a decisive turn in and throttle application. At this point, at speed, you're already dropping down into the pocket and the grip of the corner. The key ingredient, again, getting that turn in set before you can see the apex, landing into the pocket at the apex of the corner, and hitting throttle as the car loads and drives up the hill. Another big incline. There's quite a bit of exit curb here. There's even more in real life if you need it, but be careful because it's pretty treacherous on both sides, and you see so many cars lose it at the exit of turn 6. It's a migration from turn 6 driver's right over to driver's left. The setup here at the corkscrew was one that was difficult for me to learn in my early years racing here, but it's actually pretty straightforward. It's starting at driver's left, crossing the curb at driver's right, and then dipping down into the corkscrew. I think of this as a connect the dots exercise where you really are modulating the brake because there's different angulations in the racetrack before you dip it down into the corkscrew. The corkscrew is its own body of water, if you will, but let's talk about setup before we get to the corkscrew. The turn 7 section and then into the 8A. As you see, I'm gonna stay on line here. It's completely blind again, and that's why I talk about practice makes perfect at this racetrack, but this one skid mark that's here in game for me right now is drawing a line for that right front tire, but it is easy to lock brakes. The setup for the corkscrew is about 3/4 right, driver's right, and then again, it's completely blind and committed to the 8A section, but the curbs help you in finding that line. Driver's left wheel in the pocket of the curb at 8, There's an oak tree here that I aim for, which is the middle oak tree. You will see a cone there sometimes in real life, but that middle tree is giving me something to aim for as I dip down into the hill. The right-hand curb here at the corkscrew, you're not really gonna see at speed, but you'll feel it if you're there. There's a little bit of extra racetrack inside of the curb of 8A. On the exit of the corkscrew, I'm usually about 3/4 distance total out to the left, watching for sand and really keeping an eye on the visuals of where the track grip exists. Turn 9, another blind apex on approach. This is a fast corner. This is an aero corner, fastest corner on the racetrack. 3/4 of the way back to the right, leaning the car down the hill, off the brake at this point and almost covering the throttle. I like to think about a straight line, momentary straight line at the apex of turn 9. Align yourself with that red curb, get the car rotated in, but then on the exit, you're gonna have a little bit more work to do as you run across the apex curb. If you're really on a burner and you know this racetrack, you're using all of it on the exit, 9 times out of 10, I would say 8/10 of the way out on the exit of turn 9. And then you've got a lot of work to do to get the car directed driver's left, set up back over for turn 10. Another fast corner, another deceiving corner. It's faster than you think. I would say about the exit or the edge of the setup curb at this number 1 board is my turn-in point. And I'm getting in here pretty early and pretty committed, and I really am aiming for the apex curb, the blue and white apex curb. It's hard to get to with a lot of rolling speed, so that means it's a little bit earlier of a turn-in than you actually think, but then on the exit, it comes up quick. So keep your hands, keep your eye line further down for a little bit of a later exit, and then again, like turn 5, there's a crown in the road from where the racetrack meets the exit curb, so just be mindful of that because turn 10 has a tendency to suck you out if you get too regular in your usage of the exit curb. Pit lane exit is just here on the exit of turn 10, but if you continue on to the racing line and complete the lap, it's again hustling the car back over, set up nice and early for turn 11, which is a very slow hairpin, the slowest corner on the racetrack and one of the slowest corners on the entire IMSA calendar. Second gear, potentially even first gear, a good pocket of grip, kind of blinded by the A-pillar in game and in real life, but you really do want to keep that emphasis of front inside tire making some bit of contact with your apex curbs at Laguna Seca. It keeps you on the cleaner side of the racetrack, and it also is maximizing the available track that you have. Exit of turn 11 is about a positive, healthy, linear throttle application. There is racetrack past the curb. The FIA rules are that you have to have 1 tire inside of the white line, but use that racetrack on the exit of 11, but you should be committed to full throttle before you get to any exit curbs. And then it's a straight line setup up into start-finish line here at Laguna. Up the front straightaway for a little bit more speed here on this lap. I want to show you some of the flow and rhythms of car positioning, trail braking, and healthy, strong throttle application. A little bit of a scrub in front understeer there at the exit of 2, but just be patient on your throttle application. Let the front grip come back to you. Turn 3, third gear, pretty straightforward. Right on all the apex and exit curbs. Turn 4, a light brush of the brake, get down to that curb, throttle application early, shift up to 5th. Nice straight hands at the 4 board, hard braking, bleed off that brake, pick up some throttle. Let the camber of the road catch you on the exit of turn 5, grabbing 4th gear, stretch 4th gear up under the bridge. Commit to throttle, touch of the exit curb, 4th gear, back over driver's left for turn 7, connect the dots here, modulate the braking a little bit, get it woed down for the apex of 8 and 8A, shift up to third on the exit, 3/4 of the way out for turn 9, a little brush of the brake to get the front into the road, touch that apex curb, set up for 10. Remember, it's faster than you think, a little bit of rotation there on the entry for me. Good clean exit and up the front straightaway, grabbing gears and ripping around one of my favorite racetracks in the world, Laguna Seca. So closing thoughts here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Remember, different than Indianapolis and some of my previous videos, the apexes at this place are pretty early. It's really about staying on the clean line, getting to power as there's a lot of ascending and climbing, and then connecting the dots in those blind apexes, and that just takes laps. If you think about your turn in for turn 6, for turn 8, for turn 10, you don't really have a lot of visual of where you're headed. So it's about car position, it's about practice, and it's about that rhythm of linking the laps together. This track is super rewarding because when you build a rhythm, you really learn about the dynamics of the 911 GT3 Cup car and how trail braking is your friend, but also how you can get to maintenance throttle to connect the rear diff, to direct the car, and to get your eyes up to see the exit. I always say in racing, if you can see the exit point, you can go to throttle because you're going to calculate how much room you have and whether or not you're going to make it. It's when you get caught with your eyes just over the bow of the nose of the car that sometimes you'll run out of room on the exit, drop a wheel, have a spin, etc. So great place, tough to pass on. Qualifying is key, and that means you got to put in those laps and know when the crisp of that tire is, whether that's in real life or in game here with iRacing.